I think being able to not think about a multi-channel or a unichannel strategy, but a true omni-channel strategy, I think is going to be the difference on those who kind of win this growth over the next 10 years and those who do not win.
The future growth in community banking is commonly believed to be digital and leveraging fintech technology. And that's what you'd expect from a leader with a career in software and consumer fintech. But that's not the view of our guest today, Chris Turnley. Chris is the EVP of Member Experience at University Federal Credit Union. Headquartered in Austin, Texas, the $4+ billion credit union serves the rapidly growing population across Texas. Chris, thanks for being with us today.
Oh, my pleasure. It's really looking forward to the conversation.
So, Chris, you have a rather unique background, particularly for a community banker. I think that's probably a good place to start. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you did before UFCU?
Sure. So most of my career has been in technology. Going back to the 90s, we started a political startup and we've done things in printing. And so I think technology and how technology advances industries, especially I'd say more traditional industries, has been really interesting to me. It's been a large portion of my time at a company called Iron Mountain, where we did storage, everything from physical storage all the way through data centers. And so, watch that whole industry move over a 15-year period from paper-based and paper access to almost completely digital-based and digital access. And so, but still that need for kind of a historic touchstone in paper because the government requires it, things like that. And so how do you move a culture and a company forward? And then really jumped into post that more fintech now, as we call it. We didn't necessarily call it back then, and went through starting a couple companies, Chipper, which was around student lending, and DOS, which was around cashback. And then as we sold off DOS, really started to look at how do we take what I've been doing and thinking about impact of technology and the impact of this and thinking about how do you affect that at the local level. And so finding my way to a credit union was a huge blessing because you now see the impact of that, of the growth, but also the impact of what you're doing to advance and make things more accessible for people.
So it's interesting in that the role you have right now, EVP, Customer Member Experience, is traditionally seen as more like a marketing, in-person, the touch, the feel, the design of the experience, versus somebody who a lot of times would come in from the technology industry that would be put into like a CTO or a CIO role. Are you, one foot in, one foot out? Are you on the physical side or the digital channel side, or kind of where you really think your background is adding value?
I think
to members to the organization.
Yeah, it's a great question because even in the branch, it's still about digital access, right? It's still about how do we advance the technologies in there. So I think I'm a foot in on the technology side because the technology helps shape a better experience for people. We can know more about them when they come in. We can help them with better solutions. We can open up greater access because if I can understand who you are, maybe I can take people who traditional banks might turn down because I can understand you better. So it still is about technology to create that experience, but there's such a human element needed in finance for those people who may have felt like maybe financial access wasn't available to them. Maybe they grew up in a banking desert. Maybe they grew up in a whole other culture or country. And so as they come in and begin to understand this and want to have better access, or they want to have a better financial future than maybe their parents had, there's still something irreplaceable about that human to human contact and how you can sit in front of somebody and build with empathy and things like that. But if you have a bad technology surrounding that, it doesn't matter how much empathy you have because you can't really help the person. So I think if I'm on one foot in, I'm one foot in on that technology is needed to help create and shape those experiences because you actually have to get to a solution.
So the credit union is, you're almost 90 years old at this point, right? And the footprint in your charter is it's mainly university focused from a member affiliation standpoint.
Yeah. Good question. We started on the University of Texas campus 88 years ago with some professors, like a lot of credit unions, start with a single employer we've grown now. While we do partner with every major university in Central Texas, only about 20% of our membership comes actually directly through the university affiliations, and about 80% comes through the community at large.
So this again, kind of more that the geography base, this Central Texas, like Galveston County, right, is another big.
Austin, Texas is where we're based.
Okay. Sure.
And then we do have branches in Central Texas and then Galveston on the coast.
Okay. So back to what you were saying before about the approach of, how do we address a population like this that is frankly potentially could be unbanked, could be facing a bank desert or lack of access to financial services. How do you look at that as far as the mission of what you're doing, or really trying to move forward, right, in what is being seen as, digital wins the day from a financial services standpoint?
I think a lot of people approach digital as a efficiency play, and then they put it as a reach play. Because it's one thing to even think about Central Texas. We're starting to now think about how do we service the state of Texas. And the state of Texas, for those who don't pay attention, is the 7th largest economy in the world. And it's geographically monstrous. So you think about the diversity of that, and then you say, gosh, you really do need digital because you can't build nor afford to build that quickly anything physical. At the end of the day, I don't think we can differentiate that. And I think in finances, what we really have to focus on is trust building, right? And so how do you build for trust? For us, we think omni-channel is the best approach. And omni-channel means phone, in-person branches, and digitally all have to have we're never going to probably be the best digital component. We're never going to have the newest tools. I tell people, like, don't come here to be on the bleeding edge. You might want to come, because we're just never going to be able to compete at that level. But we do need to figure out what good enough is. And we need to figure out how we invest smartly to be good enough. And then how do we do that in sync with our other channels, so that those who need it in person, we have about 400,000 members today, and about 125,000 of them still use the physical branch. Well, what do they use it for? And understanding what that demographic of user is and member is, there was a very smaller portion that utilizes the phone. Well, that may not be for everybody. We certainly don't want to keep building out too much phone capability, but there is a certain population that needs that. And so the better we can understand that. And then digitally, who just wants to engage with us digitally because they want the access, they want the credit union experience, they want the credit union benefits, but they don't want to have to come into a branch. They don't really need to. And what are those demographics? So it's really about how you build each channel for the demographic it serves, not making sure that every channel has every certain thing in it. It'd be just too much money, too much investment, too much wasted investment, to be honest with you, versus really understanding how do we build trust in every single channel.
So how do you go about that? I mean, as far as like rationalizing an investment, right? I mean, often we hear community FIs kind of talk about the struggle between, do I build a branch or do I improve my mobile experience, for example, right? Those are seen as these kind of either or decisions, which child do you love the best, right?
Right.
So how do you approach that, or how do you think about that for the institution?
It's a good question. I think what I'd ask people to think about is, what's the purpose of them? So for a lot of financial institutions, the purpose of their branch is just for service. So we view our branches a little differently. We view our branches as solution centers. We expect our branches to drive productivity, because in the memberships that we talk to, those coming in, they're the ones needing loans, they're needing products, they're needing things. So we expect those conversations and solutions to happen in that channel. We also expect them to be able to handle over the phone, or even for consumer lending, we built a digital journey for them, but we don't have a digital journey for everything that people want to do, because it doesn't justify that. And so I think that's how I think about it is you have to think about what the purpose is and then what the financials are for each channel. And then really ask yourself, can I build trust just digitally? Because I think a lot of community banks and a lot of are trying to catch up with Chase or Chime or these others, and saying they've got such a national brand. And you're like, we don't have to build a national brand. This is what I remind people all the time. I don't have to build global infrastructure. I just have to build Texas-wide infrastructure. I don't have to build multinational solutions. I just have to build national solutions. And so some of the costs are going to be different, some of the needs are going to be different, but that work to really understand the demographics of your members, I think people don't spend enough time there. They spend enough time on laggard members. They spend enough time on the members they used to have and not the members that they're trying to get, and understanding where they really are. One of the things we notice, give an example, is Gen Z is a massive visitor to our branches. And most people say, well, why is that? I'm like, because they don't understand things. So they're starting to get this spot where they're getting their first job, getting a car loan, and they want to make sure it's right because they've grown up in this adventure where they've got so much information. They want to have one place they can trust and just check in. We may never see them again once they get the loan, but for those one-time experiences, loans, mortgages, they really want to have a face that they can kind of just trust that will walk with them and help build a little bit of empathy and build a little bit of better understanding. And so understanding those kinds of things, if we just built the digital, I think we would miss some of those things.
So let's talk a little bit about Texas specifically. I mean, everything's bigger in Texas, and you say it's only statewide, but again, it's a very, very big state with a very, very diverse economies and diverse demographics, the whole bit. What do you see as like some of the unique challenges that you're trying to address, or the unique needs of your members that you're trying to address, as you think about this from a growth perspective?
Yeah. So here's one thing people will probably remember. It's probably the only thing they remember that I say is that when you think about Texas, El Paso is closer to LA and Beaumont is closer to the Atlantic Ocean than they are to each other. And that's about the only thing people may only remember that. That's it. And no one will remember anything else from this podcast for me. But when you think about Texas, there's a couple things. We're based in Austin. Well, everybody, if you've been paying attention the last 15 years, knows the growth story of Austin, Texas, and how fast the area has continued to grow. Well, that also means it's become much less affordable for everybody. And we're a leader in prosperity. We talk about it. We're also leading the nation in disparity. And so those who are growing, who have homes, whose homes have tripled in value. And then there's those who can't afford homes and are living way outside. So in Central Texas, we've got to deal with that. At the same time, we have to deal with a large number of first generation Americans and a large Hispanic population. That is about a third of Central Texas speaks Spanish as their first language in their home. So where do they go for a trusted financial institution? And can you serve both? And our goal is why credit unions were created, we believe, is to create that access to capital for those who haven't had access. So how do we build ourselves in Spanish? We'll be launching that this year, where we're launching all of our products, disclosure, everything in Spanish as well, to make sure we're serving that ever growing market. And as you get out across Texas, the Spanish market is massive in Texas, but it's also massively predatory. So you have to think about, how do we do that in a way that builds trust while we're continuing to serve the needs of the market that we've been in for 88 years. And so those are the ways we're kind of thinking about it. Our next move we just published was in Houston. We're opening up in Harris County now. As we start to think of that, normally you'd go in and say, we're going to build 6 branches and we're going to be bold. We really have to learn the market. So we partner our way in. So we're partnering with one entity, looking to partner with a second entity, and then we'll kind of partner and take a couple of years to really learn the market. So to your point, that investment that we make can actually be helpful and additive to the community that we're in, versus taking a one bank fits all kind of approach. And so really understanding what our niche is in those markets is really important, I think, for any community bank, but certainly for credit unions, where you might be more limited in the capital you can outlay.
So when you're looking at partners to kind of go into a new community or a new area, what are you looking for in a partner? Like, what makes a good partner from your selection criteria, or how they're going to help you identify needs, et cetera?
Yeah. We tend to look at large education institutions, University of Texas, Texas State. Those have been great partners. In Houston, we're partnering with University of Texas Health Houston. And so academic or medical that have large employee bases, because we know kind of what the niche is there and we can serve those. And it also gives us a little bit of a reason to be in the community. So if we're serving the medical community, for instance, it gives us a reason to be there. And it gives us a way to focus our products and our attention on one part of the community first. So we look at large employers sometimes too, but we tend to find is they come later. But if we can get super focused in that academic or medical space where we have a long reputation, then we can build out from there and then get more large employer partners as we go along, because credit unions can often be an employee benefit, or seen as an employee benefit to be able to join.
And speaking of employers, I mean, Texas has been on a run here for at least the past 4 years, or an accelerated run for the past 4 years. How much has that affected your, not just your growth, but maybe what your growth plans are? Like, are you just benchmarking off of just general demographics, kind of looking to maintain share or grow share, or how does that impact your view of the future?
Yeah. So if you're talking about just a member growth back, we kind of benchmark to the area. And if say like we can keep up with that, then we're doing pretty well. But it also made the area much more competitive, right? Because we're not the only ones who can read the papers and find out that Texas is growing. So we've seen a lot of new entrants into the market, right? And some have entered in well, some have entered in a little bit more of a struggle. But it's really about how do you keep and maintain. And I think for years, especially for any large institution, not large, long-standing institution, you become so used to, well, everybody knows us. And so when I came in here about 5 years ago, there was kind of a belief that everybody knew us. And I'm like, no. If we're getting 100 plus new people a day moving into the city, they don't know us. So how do we introduce ourselves as a long-standing institution to the new people who are moving into your edge? That was a whole new muscle for us. And now the next new muscle is how do we enter into a new market? And so we've got to keep challenging ourselves with the technology, with marketing, with trust building, with product building. Product building is a really big deal. And it hasn't been for a number of years. And again, remember, like the flat rate, interest rate, things didn't have to change that much. For the last 3 years, everything's changed. And so even the mix of products and things like that has, where we were a big mortgage shop. We've had to reduce that, become a bigger consumer lending shop. And so making sure that we're moving to the product and product focus to where our members really need us as well is really important.
So do you primarily serve individuals, consumers, or do you have like a business side as well?
We primarily serve consumers. We serve what we'll call very small businesses, a lot of sole prop, small businesses under $1 million in revenue. We've got some products for, and I think because we don't charge fees and things, I think it's a real nice place for them to start their businesses. Plus we allow them to start their businesses where a lot of banks don't allow them to, but mostly 90+% of our business is in the direct individual consumer, individual members.
So that's more in service of your consumer business than necessarily a primary growth driver for you.
Agreed. Yeah. And well, I'd say they're one and the same. So our primary growth driver is what those things that are going to hit the individual. And so one thing, it's interesting. And I think in fintechs, we were better at this, is understanding word of mouth. And if you think about every fintech, every app you've ever signed up for that had anything to do with your money pays you a pretty significant amount to refer your friends in, right? And we in the credit union, even the community bank space, the number one way people drive is word of mouth. And we don't fund those kinds of things. So that's the other things we're doing as far as growth is refer a friend is a huge growth driver for us because our people were already telling their friends about it. Now we're just making it a little bit easier for them and incentivizing them to do it and letting our members know they're part of that. So some of these old school things that we kind of, get so smart we forget are still some of the primary drivers for us when we think about growth.
So thinking about growth and going forward, and whether this is a technology answer or not, what are the things either from a skills or capacity standpoint that you think the institution is going to need going forward? What is that muscle you're going to have to build, or just flat out capacity you're going to have to add?
Yeah. It's a good question. So maybe I'll answer two ways. One, what I talk to every single leader about is curiosity. You in an industry that's regulated, right? So we know that. And so we can't change everything overnight and things. But I think as leaders, we have to remain super curious about who are our members, what are they doing, what else are they struggling with, why, what's the role of finance and how is that changing? Hey, I heard about this new app. And did you just hear about it or did you go look it up? Hey, I heard about this new podcast. Hey, did you listen to it or did you not? I think we have to be more curious as leaders than maybe the financial leadership has been in the past. I think that's number one. From a capacity standpoint, I think this ability to think through 3 channels or how many, you can include chat as one of the channels or as a 4th channel, and think about those channels as separate and all part of one journey, but they're separate parts for different members. And I think being able to not think about a multi-channel or a uni-channel strategy, but a true omni-channel strategy, I think is going to be the difference on those who kind of win this growth over the next 10 years and those who do not win the growth over the next 10 years.
Well, this has been very interesting and a very unique perspective on this, and I really appreciate you sharing with us today, Chris. If anybody's interested more in you or the credit union, where can they go for more information?
Well, for me, I would say just look me up on LinkedIn. You see my name here, and I'm happy to connect with you and talk more about if you got a specific question or you got a specific idea. Would love to hear that. I think we do get a lot better together, and I no means believe I've got the secret of that. So excited for that. And then UFCU.org is the credit union here based in Austin, Texas. And if you ever want to come on by, I'm sure we got to talk. We're cooking up somewhere.
And we'll put links to both of those in the show notes. Chris, thank you very much for being here.
You bet. Have a great day.